Hey guys, it's your old pal Tony Giles TG here, welcoming you once again back into the record room. And on today's episode, I wanted to talk about one of my favourite scores of all time, as it's recently just received the reissue treatment, courtesy of the good folks over at Music on Vinyl. I am of course talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula by the phenomenal Wojciech Keeler. Now, back in 1992, when the film and the score were originally released, it did come out on vinyl, but it came out on vinyl in some kind of strange places. There was a Brazilian pressing, a South Korean pressing, a European pressing, and a Spanish pressing. All of which over the years have become harder and harder to find, and the price has rapidly risen. It's great that Music on Vinyl have reissued this record, because it means that so many new collectors are able to get the record and listen to it. But how does it compare to some of those original pressings? Well, hands up, I don't actually own the Brazilian pressing, and unfortunately I have searched high and low over the years, and unfortunately a lot of South American records, especially from 20-30 years ago now, they don't tend to pop up in great condition, and the copies of Dracula that have come online, they've not really been worth the money. You know, they haven't been super expensive, but then they have also been virtually unplayable. So if I were going to purchase it, I'd literally just be purchasing it just to have on my shelf. And as much as I like to own multiple pressings of, you know, the same title, I do like to play them. So there would really be no point for me to buy a record just to have it and never listen to it. So I can't talk about the Brazilian pressing. However, I can talk about the others, because I own every copy there is bar the Brazilian pressing. So we have here, this is the Spanish version, which was my original copy. This is the European version, the South Korean version, and the new Music on Vinyl reissue. So what I plan to do now is talk about each copy in a little bit more detail, and then I'll actually give you my recommendation for the best sounding version. Okay guys, it's time to get our Vlad on and take a little bit more of an in-depth look at the Bram Stoker's Dracula score on vinyl, at least the versions I have here. As I said, I don't own a Brazilian copy, but I have all the others, so I have a pretty good idea on how they sound, how they look, that kind of a thing here. So we'll start with the one that I first owned, the first one I ever tracked down, and this is the Spanish version of the record, which, let's take this out of the sleeve. My copy is not, I repeat, not in great shape, but you can see the label there, and it says around the edge something in Spanish, but it says Madrid. So that's essentially, if you're not too sure which version you have, or which version, if you see it out and about, there you go. It says Madrid on the label, and I'll be honest with you, it's not a great pressing. It's really not. The cover's nice. The cover does kind of, you know, it gives you exactly what you want. And mine is not in bad shape. The cover's way better than the vinyl is. And I don't know what it is about this record, and I don't know if it's just because of the amount of quiet parts in this record, but it is really hard to find an original version that sounds great, or so I thought. But that's the version I had first, and I can't remember how much I paid for it. I know at the time it was probably, I think it was around 40 or 50 pounds, something along those lines. But then I stumbled upon this. This is the European version, which I know kind of sounds funny because Spain, Europe, but this was the European version that was pressed in Holland. And the way to tell them apart straight away, if you look at them, the Spanish has black text and the European has yellow text. So that's a very quick indicator of which version you have. So this, again, the sleeve is really nice on this and looks pretty much identical to the Spanish version. It's almost exactly the same. There's not really a whole lot of difference there. And everything came out on the Columbia label, so it's not like it was on different different companies pressing it. But there you go, the label is slightly different, and around the outside, or I think yeah, it's around the outside. I don't know if you can see it there, but it actually says made in Holland. And this version here, now this is, sometimes you do stumble upon records, sometimes you can get lucky. And with this version here, I was extremely lucky. I already owned the record, the Spanish version, but again, as I said, it doesn't sound the greatest. It's a little bit poppy and crackly, and even after cleaning the record several times, it still has lots of pops and clicks. I found this copy in a second-hand record store in the Midlands for £10. Now, what's quite funny about that is the record store is notoriously bad for overpricing things, but they actually had this for £10, and I think the only other version I could find available that was online was selling for close to £100. So, you know, it's hard to say when things are going to come your way, but I was extremely happy to add this pressing to my collection because it looks great and it also sounds really good. And as I had 2 of the original 4, I thought, well, why don't I try and track down the other 2? And that's how this version came into my collection. I looked for the Brazilian pressing. There were a couple online, but honestly, I had the sellers send me pictures and they looked bad. They looked bad in phone pictures, so I can only imagine how terrible they would have looked in real life. But this version right here, this is the South Korean pressing, and I have to say, this is a fantastic pressing. And I know that may sound strange to some of you out there, because I know people that own this pressing, and they say it's terrible. But my copy here, I don't know if it was just really looked after, but this sounds phenomenal. This sounds genuinely phenomenal. And we'll take a look at the record, the package here. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but honestly, this cover is total garbage. This cover looks as though it's been photocopied. It looks like a color photocopy of the European cover. It has the yellow text, but it's all washed out. And the cover itself just looks bad. And this version has a blue spine, and this is the only version that has this blue spine. And I don't know if you can tell, but the blue is actually leaking onto the front cover as well. Whoever did this jacket it's absolutely awful. But it's not all bad, because some of the quirkiness about this jacket is pretty unique. So that's what the back of every version of the record looks like, except for this one, which is just bootleg as all get out. It's so bad. I love it. It's so bad. I love it so much. This literally looks like it was done on Word or, you know, Microsoft Publisher back in the early 90s. And, you know, it could have been. Who knows? But what's cool about this version is it comes with, so I do replace all of my sleeves, but this here, this is the original sleeve. And, you know, it's a polyline sleeve. It's an actual Sony polyline sleeve, which is very cool. And it also comes with this really neat insert. None of the other versions come with an insert. It's only one-sided, but it has Hangul down here, which I believe is information about the tracks. And there is actually, I can't remember what track it is, but there's some spelling mistakes on this as well, which, yeah, it's spelling mistakes from the front cover or from the back cover to the insert, which they could have just looked, but I don't know. But this version, aside from the cover, how does it sound? Well, my friends, aside from having a fantastic label, I absolutely adore that label, and this is the only label that just labels it as Dracula. Every other label labels it as Bram Stoker's Dracula. But this version right here, this version sounds amazing. The record itself feels like it's definitely been pressed on, you know, thinner vinyl, but not too bad. This is probably 120, 130, something like that. It's not super thin. it's really, really good. And when I told people this, that, you know, I got a South Korean pressing and it was really good, they didn't believe me almost. But then this version came out. Now this version's only been available for, I think maybe like 2 or 3 weeks as of the recording of this video. Music on vinyl, 180 gram audiophile vinyl, limited edition of 2,500 copies on translucent red. And my copy is 1,311. So I'm almost halfway, well not actually almost halfway, but I'm not too far away from the middle of the pack, which is totally fine. 2,500 records, that's not a huge amount. Stampers would have been fine. I do not know where this record was mastered from. If it was mastered from original tapes, if it was from a digital master, I honestly do not know. I can, however, tell you that this is, for value for money, this version is the absolute best you can buy. For £25, $30, you cannot go wrong with this copy. It sounds absolutely fantastic for what it is. Compared to all the others, if you're trying to look for those others, you're going to pay anywhere between, I don't know, 50 and £100 for some of those versions. And unless you are one of those mad collectors like me that wants to have all these different versions, this is the one to get. It's so well done. It comes in the music on vinyl. They come in these thick plastic sleeves, which I usually get rid of or put to one side. But this is just wonderful. The Dracula and the relief here, they are embossed and spot varnished, so they really leap off the cover, and it gives the record that extra little something. I genuinely am a fan of this, and it does replicate the original back cover. Obviously this version does have the number stamped into it of its limited edition, but yeah, as far as pressings go, I simply cannot fault this one. You know, the pressing, it's not perfect. It's not perfect at all, but it's great. It's really good. There you go. There's the label. You can see the trans red Bram Stoker's Dracula. I've only listened to it a handful of times because I'm so familiar with this record. I don't feel like I have to listen to it a lot because I've been listening to it for over 30 odd years. But again, value for money wise, I do not believe you are going to get better than this. I genuinely don't. I believe Mondo are also pressing the record, and I don't know if that's going to be the kind of extended version, because La La Land did release I believe it was a triple CD set a couple of years ago that had, I don't know, like 70 songs on it, something crazy like that, because there were a ton of tracks recorded for this. And honestly, you know, kind of, I've made my peace with the Annie Lennox track, but if they had taken that off in, you know, lieu of some more score, I'd have been very happy with that. So, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. I've now added another copy of Dracula to my collection, and the overall one I would recommend to all you guys out there is this copy right here, and it's available pretty much in all good record stores around the world, but it is limited to 2,500 copies. So do not delay, because there's a good chance this will sell out, and then we'll probably start selling on the second-hand market for way more than it is actually worth. So if you're looking to get your spook on this holiday season, go and get yourself a copy of Wojciech Kilar's score for Dracula. Thank you for joining me once again in the record room. Remember, be safe out there. Above everything, make sure you're wearing your mask. Make sure you're being safe. Stay gold and spin those blackest circles.